Elizabeth felt as though someone hooked a finger down her throat and physically dragged her all the grudging way back up the grand staircase after Colonel Fitzwilliam's smug, retreating figure. She vowed to meet Mr. Darcy's eye once, with steady civility, relay her farewells, then escape forever, never to be goaded again by dreams unfulfilled, or guilted by doleful dark eyes. Steeling herself, she crossed the threshold alone. The sounds of harsh, ragged breathing drew Elizabeth's eye to a slumbering Mr. Darcy as she crept nearer. From this vexing man's heroic and frankly intimidating physique to his proud profile now softened by sleep, whispered of virility and power that made his present helplessness doubly cruel by contrast. Darcy shifted slightly, though apparently unaware of her presence yet. His formidable chest and forearms still declared him nature's favoured son, but he lacked any outlet to expend that restless energy, now confined in his useless lower limbs, like a mighty draught horse shackled by only one errant hoof. Elizabeth approached nearer still, studying him, cataloguing impressions that guarded eyes and waking alertness might obscure. One of his large aristocratic hands, restlessly clenching and unclenching in sleep, drew her gaze. What pursuits would those strong fingers never grip, a fencing foil or billiard cue, to master again? His aquiline features were all chiselled edges and sharp intelligence, and currently gaunt with bitter despair, if Mrs. Hodges was to be believed. Elizabeth's wayward appraisal wandered along the blankets, shrouding Darcy's useless thighs and calves, until that deep voice, clipped yet honeyed, nearly made her jump out of her own skin.
"You may as well come closer. It's hardly as though I planned to ravish you."
Beneath the sarcasm, anguished bitterness etched his tone.
"And I've not even shoes to fling, only words left as weapons against beauty's arsenal."
Elizabeth flushed guilty scarlet at being caught out, hand flying self-consciously to her throat. Forcing starch back into her tone, she countered, "Or against what small virtues I possess? As I am not handsome enough to tempt you, I imagine you must be quite immune to whatever power I do have." Some emotion flickered over Mr. Darcy's countenance. With a visible effort, he rasped,
"Well, you may sit down at least. Else Richard can brag about conquering the great Darcy's savage temper with a mere slip of a girl standing over me."
Elizabeth eyed the bedside chair reluctantly, instinct urging her to bolt back out the door and recover some semblance of her pride. But the man before her now seemed deflated, more than threateningly temperamental. Stomach churning with trepidation, Elizabeth gingerly lowered herself into the chair, angled near Darcy's elbow. Judging by his pinched features, whatever poison he had worked up to spew would come momentarily. The gentleman turned his head with effort upon the pillow to regard her directly. In profile, she had missed the sharp intelligence in those heavily lashed eyes, shards of ice crystal though they were.
"So, you are the unfortunate creature Richard thought to leg-shackle to a crippled man?"
He grimaced.
"What do you there in the savagery of Meryton, is it? Play mistress of the house while your mother instead fusses over ribbons and lace?"
Affront jerked Elizabeth more rigidly upright, though she bit back a scolding retort with effort. Clearly, still waters of disdain ran deep here, and murky. At her continued silence, something like chagrin flickered across Darcy's brow.
"You must think me beyond the pale. I fear misery has corroded my tongue, along with everything else beneficial."
He looked aside, jaw working.
"The degradation seems never-ending."
Against her will, pity whispered traitorously through Elizabeth. She leaned fractionally nearer, searching features shuttered once more. "Does it pain you very much?" A brittle facsimile of a smile cracked Darcy's granite facade.
"The laudanum helps, sometimes. Other times not even a narcotic euphoria can numb whatever remains sensible in this useless carcass."
His eyes squeezed shut briefly, in naked agony that wrenched Elizabeth's breath. But his next sullen glare headed off tender sympathy. Like a turtle retreating under its shell, all traces of vulnerability vanished.
"Can you even imagine what it means to have one's entire being confined thus, helpless, to never seize freedom on horseback or dance floor again until death drags you under?